Two unemployed actors, two unemployed actors. They're just between projects.
Welcome back to Two Unemployed Actors. I'm Max.
I'm Sam.
And you've actually got us together today, this week, this episode. We've survived the plague. We've survived our survival jobs. We're still talking all things acting in between interviews, and there's some more exciting guests coming up, which is fantastic.
Super exciting.
Can't wait.
We're going well with those interviews.
And really learning. I know next week's episode is Chris Corbett, where we talk specifically about writing for actors, which fits exactly with what I need to know right now as an actor trying to write some stuff, because, you know, sometimes you've got to create your own opportunities.
Yeah, he was great. And I learned, a friend/colleague of mine at the cafe met him when he came into the cafe before I started working there. So there was that weird connection.
Oh, right.
And he said he was awesome and really nice, and he met him on set for the first time before the cafe visit.
You can see how he's
awesome.
a really good teacher as well. So, look, It's a huge episode, really insightful. I'm not going to diminish it by talking about it now. Make sure you listen, subscribe, download, and enjoy it next week. But this week, Sammy, interestingly, everything's changed now, and you're sort of bedded down into your change of you've moved out of home, you've got your survival job in full swing, and maybe acting doesn't represent the same size of the pie, the same slice as it did prior.
I mean, I wanted to talk a bit about that because, you know, I've gotten to early adulthood, and
you've made it.
Jess, we made it finally. Jess and I moved out of home, and it's been awesome. And then I got like a proper job and all that stuff. But I still, for me, acting still represents that creative part of my life.
So it's still your passion.
Oh, 100%. And I still would love it to be my career. But at the same time, Jess and I watched a great interview by an author that I've actually forgotten. She wrote Eat, Love, Pray. Or Eat, Live. Yeah, that one. But she also wrote another great book about your creative passions and career paths. And she was saying that how you can't you can't throw everything at it and you know, take out another mortgage on your house to fund it and do all this stuff, because then when you crash and fall, you won't get back up. And that really opened my eyes to separating those two. I'm happy in both sides of my life at this point. One does affect the other, but
it's kind of like your foundation is your survival job, or your hospitality world. Yeah. And because you've got that foundation, you're able to spend that time doing,
exactly,
your acting projects when you can.
Let that fund your passions and your creative endeavors. And, you know, don't beat yourself up if you slack off a bit on those endeavors for a little while, you know, then you can jump back on board. And recently I got more and more motivated doing different things, trying to push my career forward in multiple ways, and changing things up a bit. But you just got to make sure that you're happy in both sides of your life, with both sides. And I mean, that's all that matters. And I'm content and I'm happy with it. So.
And how are you finding, because it's great that you're happy with the fact that you're still able to pursue acting, you've still got representation, you can still do auditions and all that. And that's great that you've got an opportunity to have flexibility in your workplace to do that. But you've sort of gone from, obviously a large part of your week was acting, whether it be workshops or, going through scenes with a scene partner, or, just staying work fit in other ways. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, you're getting home from work, and like probably the last thing you want to do sometimes is put on your creative hat and stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, that's where the self-motivation comes. As we both know, this industry's a lot about self-motivation. Nothing else is really going to motivate you. So yeah, Jess and I have been trying to find the time to do more self-tapes. You got to kind of set aside time and do that.
So it's forced you to be a bit more organised and plan a bit more in that respect.
Yeah, 100%. And
it's good that Jess
honest,
is there to be able to do it with you. That's great, and share that passion.
Yeah, exactly. And I would, I'd drop everything if I got a role, or every time I get an audition, I find that time, whether I have to memorize a monologue while I'm at work, it doesn't matter. When something comes up, it comes up. I do it because I want to do it. But yeah, it's those times in between that you got to work harder at putting aside to actually keep pursuing.
So you mentioned that you've taken a step back almost to look at where you're at in your journey as an actor and where you're headed and what you need to do. Is that something that you always do, or is it this new thing that in order to stay motivated, I need to make sure I've the time to step back and change things up?
So throughout the years, there have been I'd say every 6 months or so, I'd have a mental breakdown about, is this all right? Nothing's coming out of it, and I'd literally just cry.
We all have our moments as artists, absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in, I guess.
We're the best artists in the world, and then we're the worst artists in the world, and
exactly. And at those points, I then step back and reassess and look at what can I do to keep motivating myself. And for 10 plus years now, I've been doing that. So COVID has affected this a lot, as we know.
Yeah. I like the fact that you've developed the habit. You've developed the habit to do it though, rather than waiting for crisis moment.
Yeah.
You've sort of got the habit now to regularly do it. So instead of waiting for the world to fall in and feel absolutely miserable because you've got, because of something that's happened on the creative front, you're actually
100%.
regularly doing something.
And during COVID, there were plenty of those breakdowns, more than usual, because you weren't doing anything.
That's right. But
that just helped motivate a bit more. And like I said, I'm doing a lot less acting than I have been. But for me as a person, as soon as I'm unhappy with something in my life, completely change it. I drop everything and I change it. At the moment, I'm happy, and that's I keep going to the word happy because that's all. I truly believe that's all that really matters.
Indeed.
So yeah,
and I think so. When it comes to planning now, like you've got a plan time to do self tapes and plan time to do like monologues on your own or whatever it might be. Do you find that you're really working on the quality rather than quantity with time? Like you're sort of going, well, I've only got a couple hours a week to do
100%.
this type of work. Yeah, because
100%. I recently added to my show reel an American accent piece, and I wasn't just trying to pump one out. I chose a monologue that I'd actually looked at a couple years before and
familiar with it
throughout the years.
Right.
So I could learn it very quickly. So I used everything that I learned from Danielle Roth to perfect and do the best American accent that I could do at that time. And the performance was great, but the focus was the accent because that's what I was putting it in. And I showed it to Jess, and she said that was the best accent I've seen you do. And I was like, great. So yeah, we're focusing more on, I guess, because of time, quality over quantity. And I guess that should be the focus most of the time anyway, because...
But it's funny, isn't it, how all of a sudden when you're under pressure, you've still only got the same amount of time in a day. It's funny how what you thought was important isn't that important really. And you start to realise, like, what was I spending all of my acting time on when, I could have been doing this. It's amazing. So that layer of pressure, that real world pressure is kind of great fuel in some way. I mean, we've got to get used to working under pressure. So it all helps.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, I think it's a much better way to show yourself off quality over quantity, because they're not going to watch all of them. Casting agents aren't going to watch all of them, and if they see one shitty one,
exactly,
it's not a good thing.
And I use that analogy a lot because even when it comes to like doing a self tape for an audition, instead of having the luxury of doing 20 takes, you might only have the time to do a few, 2 or 3, and you just got to be so much more focused. So, and sometimes that produces that pressure produces the better work.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. And look, I mean, for me too, I haven't been on set all year. What are we now? We're end of April. It's May next week. I haven't been on set as an actor all year. I've only done one voiceover because it was actually today by sheer coincidence, because a client that I worked with previously reached out and said, "Oh, but can you please, because I wasn't making it a priority because I'm focusing on my little passion project, getting the TV series up and running." So, it's like I feel it, because the reason I'm doing the podcast, the reason I'm doing the television show is so that I can have more opportunities as an actor. And yet here I am, Actor Max is sort of pushed into the corner because I'm doing the podcast. And okay, I went overseas. I went to the podcast conference in LA and all these sort of one-off things that suck up a whole lot of time.
Yeah.
But are really good, but they've all sort of come at once. Like, setting up the production company. I set up a production company last week. Talking to lawyers, talking to my accountant. These are not fun conversations for an actor, really. They're necessary. But they're not fun. Talking to a trademark lawyer and then talking to my accountant, and it's what I've got to do to be a creative producer and set up a production company, and job done. Thankfully, I don't have to do that again for a long time. But I suddenly thought before today's episode just how little I've spent doing what it is I'm doing all this other stuff for.
Yep.
The irony is real.
Yeah. It's it's a business as well, which is that's the annoying part for actors. We just want to be creatives, but in reality, it's a lot about it's a business. You're your own business. And it's just, and there's all that behind the scenes stuff is annoying.
So many moving parts to it. You just try and put yourself in all the moving parts to make the most of any opportunity. It's hilarious. To the point where I'm even thinking about putting my hand up for a few student film auditions again.
Oh, yeah.
And I say that...
Yeah, just to keep busy.
Yeah, well, because just to keep fresh and work fit. Because I you know what it's like when you're on set, It's just... that's what
exhilarating.
I want. That's when I'm working, So, and I say that with some trepidation because I know last time I said, "Oh, I'd love to do some student films." Ended up with 5.
You've had some great experiences.
It was awesome. Well, there was a couple of dodgy ones in there, but I ended up with a character a week for 4 weeks, and it was just this intense, month and a half of living in all these different characters. Fantastic experience. And great fun. I didn't expect to get all of the roles, but it was a lot of fun. I think I say it tentatively this time around because it'd be great to get a couple where I can really sink my teeth into the character and play a lot more now that I'm a bit more experienced.
Yeah.
And student films are great because you get this. You get a bit more opportunity to play a bit more, you can take the character into different places and see what works. Doesn't work, okay, I'll try something else. It's not so much, we must copy the rehearsal and do that in the front of the camera and there's 1,000 people waiting for you to do exactly what you said you would do.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that creative environment. So I think I might actually untick my paid only on one of the online platforms and see what happens. See if there's any juicy scripts floating around student film space.
There are a lot of student projects out there that are really good.
And we know from a lot, you only have to be a regular listener to realise how many different film schools there are of varying qualities.
Yeah.
And yes, but I think that's one way for me to keep fresh without having to worry about all the other stuff in the business. Just to be focused on developing a character and running with a character for a bit.
100%. Yeah, I agree. I'd love to get back into those actually, especially as we've spoken about before. Afters is awesome.
Yes,
stuff.
I don't know when they do their. Well, the last one I did with them was their first year students actually, and they were more professional as a group, the most film crews I've worked with. So.
They're definitely the future of Australian crews, as
fantastic.
we know. They a lot of them come from there.
I really enjoyed that last role. So yeah, so now I might stick my little radar up and see what's out and about.
Stick your little radar.
Stick my little radar up.
Sounds
stick my
very
toe in the
sensual.
water. Indeed. Well, on the other front, the passion project's moving. I've got the pilot script done. I've got an outline, somewhat of a show bible, like all the characters and arcs and stuff, but it's still fairly loose.
Yeah.
And I'm now looking for, and I've reached out to a couple of writers who have worked on either script supervisor or writers for some television shows in Australia in the past, to try and bring someone on board to just, vet it with that authoritative, experienced kind of hat on to sort of finesse and polish it a bit.
100%.
Because I think then I'll be in a better place to then approach a production company and go, I'm creating this, I'm writing it, it's my baby, but it's with input from so-and-so in the industry, and, it'd be great to see it come to life. I think I'll get it further that way, or at least I'll get further in the door, hopefully, with that in mind. So I've put that in play. And I've set up a production company for the podcasting world, for the television show that I've got now that I can officially say in development. It's called Add Kulcha Productions.
There we go.
Kulcha.
Okay.
Culture. I wanted a name that sort of ended with the same letter so I can play with it a bit with the little, the logo is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, yeah.
But typically now when you go to register a business, obviously you check the business registry to see if there's someone else has already got the name.
Yeah.
But you also check all of the social media. Can you get the URL? I had to kill a few pet names, but yeah, no, Add Kulcha Productions is born.
Good.
And that's where all the IP is going to sit, and hopefully help me get a step closer to reality.
Yeah, awesome.
But meanwhile, yeah, I'm gonna put my toe in the water and see what's out there in the world of student film scripts, and even just to do a few auditions, just to keep work for it, because it just hasn't been a focus
In a while,
and that's why, and yet that's what I'm doing all this stuff for, to be more actory.
True.
It's crazy. Anyway, well, a short episode, but nonetheless an update. And it's great to get inside your head, Sam, on where you're at now with your whole world literally changing completely. It's a massive change. So, and I know what it's like when you're trying to push something on the side while you're working to live. So it's great that you're happy in both jobs in both worlds, so, which is also good. And you've got a supportive partner who also understands what it's like to be an actor.
Yes. Yeah. We've spoken about it on the podcast before. It's very, very awesome.
It does help. Fred, unfortunately, he's just actually taking his dog bed apart as we speak. He's not quite the same level of support. Today. No, he waits until we're interviewing someone and then he barks.
Yeah.
So,
or we're doing the outro.
Yeah,
and it takes us 10 minutes to do the outro.
Thanks, Fred. All right. Well, make sure you subscribe. You follow us, download and listen, because next week we've got Chris Corbett on writing for actors and lots more guests coming up. You've been listening to Two Unemployed Actors. I'm Max.
I'm Sam.
And you'll hear us next week. Bye.
Two unemployed actors.